Hi, I'm Jackie Tantillo, and this is Should Have Listened to My Mother. Before I introduce this week's guest, I want to thank all of my dedicated guests and listeners who voted to nominate Should Have Listened to My Mother for the 2023 People's Choice Podcast Awards. We have been nominated, and we so appreciate all of your support. And you can hear the show anywhere you listen, social media, also my Simplecast site, which is SHLTMM.simplecast.com. My guest, also a nominee for this year's People's Choice Podcast Awards for her show Finding Beautiful Strangers, refers to herself as a serial entrepreneur. Her philosophy for success: you've got to roll with it, everyone's going to say no, and no means nothing, and take the bull by the horns and make it happen. And that's just a few of her philosophies. Abby Wallach says her entrepreneurial drive started at a young age. As a child, she had visions and ideas for inventions and future businesses. Abby is a digital media expert with decades of experience. While launching new products, Abby overcame many business obstacles. Her passion, drive, sixth sense for what's good, and her ability to work around challenges got her to where she is today. On her 12-episode limited podcast series, Finding Beautiful Strangers, she shares many stories of her career, including the creation and launch of Sparty Scents, as well as longer-lasting fragrance primer Linger. She is the CEO and co-founder of Scent and Vent Technologies, a fragrance and beauty innovation company, as well as head of Abby Wallach Productions. And she's here to share stories of her mother and grandmothers. Abby Wallach, welcome to Should Have Listened to My Mother.
I just have to say, when I woke up to your beautiful email, I was in the country with my mother, just thinking about literally my mother and how blessed I am to still have her at the young age of 80. And it was serendipitous that you had emailed me on a Sunday morning to invite me on to this fantastic show. So I'm so excited to be here.
As you said, the universe has funny ways of working its magic. You mentioned it in your note that you and your mom had just watched the Amy Tan documentary, Unintended Memoir. And you had been really embracing your relationship with your mom, in particular because of the Amy Tan documentary on Netflix. If anyone hasn't seen it, you should definitely check it out. But there is something magical if we are fortunate enough to have, is it the right mother? The mother that we were given, that she will have that impact on our life, that just once in a lifetime experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm also a mom to 3 sons. I think that, but I'm also a mom to many. And I think that it all starts with the person that raises you, right? But a lot of people can raise you. So there are a lot of different kinds of mothering, but I was very blessed to grow up with a mother who was very positive and playful and inspiring to me, and always believed in my dreams and my ideas. And she really allowed me as a young child, to be who I was. And my grandmothers, I was blessed with 2 amazing grandmothers on my mother's side and on my father's side. And both of those women were very, very bright and very business savvy. And I even had a great grandmother who started a very successful catering business. So I was always surrounded by a lot of very interesting women who were smart and strong and had a lot of self-esteem and self-respect. So I was very lucky to have that surround me. And if I couldn't get something from one of those women, I would get it from the other. So I really was able to figure out how to use and how to experience each one of the beauty of each one of their nature and their intelligence and their way of being in the world. But, it was my mother who raised me, and I had a wonderful childhood. I was actually a tomboy. I was very into baseball. I was very into inventing things and lotions and potions. And she was just very encouraging, whatever I wanted to do at that very young age. She would always be on my team. And things changed as I got a little bit older, but we can get into that as the story evolves.
Let's set the stage a little bit. What is your mom's name, or how did you refer to her when you were a child?
So my mom's name is Marlene. And, it's funny when you think about that. I was listening to a podcast the other day about a very famous person referring to her mother as mommy. And I don't think I referred to my mother as mommy. I think I called her just mom. I think it was mom.
That's good.
Just like that. Yeah, it was great. Mom and dad. Like it was,
right.
They were my mom. She was my mom and she was my mom.
Your grandmother's names.
So my mother's name was Selma, and my father's mother's name was Gertrude, and they called her Gert. I called my mother's mother Nanny. That was her name. So she was Nanny. And my other grandmother, Gertrude, was Gram or Grammy. I didn't call her grandma because my great grandmother was referred to as grandma. So, and she was the matriarch of a big family. So
we don't go near that. We don't mess with that.
Okay.
Do you have siblings? And where did you grow up? Set the story.
Sure. So I have a younger brother who's 4 years younger than me. His name is Stephen, and we grew up in Cedarhurst in the Five Town.
So you had time with your mom. Would you do the more feminine things, or was she active, your mom? You said you were tomboy, which I love. So what was the sentiment, or what was your go-to to do with your mom?
When I think about my earliest childhood memories, we spent a lot of time with our grandparents. And I remember spending time at the beach. One grandmother lived in Bal Harbor in Miami, which is in a small town called Surfside. So we used to visit there often in Miami as a family and with my mother and my grandmother. And then my other grandmother lived in Bell Harbor in Far Rockaway. So we spent a lot of time with our grandparents and family, having family dinners on Friday nights. And those are very special memories for me. I think spending time with my mother as a child, she was a teacher. So she was very playful, and education was always very important to her. She was home when I was little, and was our caretaker. So, I think it was just a playful environment that was special. And my family owned a sleepaway camp, and I would spend my summers there. So I spent a lot of time as a child, as a very little girl, up at the camp. With my parents and with my mom. And that was really the heart of my upbringing, and had very special memories for me.
And what would you all cook together? Because that's often food is, in our family, food was a pretty big thing, or cooking in the kitchen. My grandmother was always cooking. Or was it being out in nature?
So my family was actually in the kosher catering business. So my greatest memories of the cooking was really not of the cooking, because my father would bring home a lot of very beautiful food from the catering business, because that was our family business. That was the life. I remember Shabbat dinners on Friday night that my mom would do at my grandmother's, and baking a challah, which was always warm the house with a beautiful delicious smell from the bread baking. So Shabbat dinners were special. I don't remember cooking a lot with my mother. It wasn't a very big part of my work, and actually I don't really cook.
Well, because you had everyone.
I don't know. She loves to cook. She's an amazing cook. My parents were wonderful entertainers. They had big Thanksgiving meals. I was more interested in actually the presentation of everything. I was not as into the food. I was much more into making everything beautiful and making sure the flowers were there and the table was set and the accoutrements and everything was really like a formal affair or party, because that was the atmosphere that I was brought into and that I was raised in.
Well, that's
actually.
Your producer and you already blooming and budding, right? The events.
Absolutely. That was a huge part of my inspiration, that because my family was in that business, I was around it my whole life. So I saw the beauty of what the business offered their customers and how happy they were with the work that my family provided. So it was my father and my grandfather, my great-grandfather. My mother did not work in the business. The only time, well, she did work in a later business with my dad, but my family always worked in the camp and the office. And so she was very much a part of that. But, my mom, she would always show up at my baseball games. She would root for me. And she was always very, very, very supportive of anything I wanted to do, whatever that was.
What did she teach and what age?
So she taught little children. I think she was like nursery and kindergarten. She loved being with children. My mother is very angelic. She is a very beautiful spirit and soul. She is very thoughtful and kind and very intuitive, and she just lights up a room. Everything was very happy when I was a child. She used to, I don't know why she would call me, there was this word, I guess it was Yiddish. I don't really know Yiddish well, but it was like I guess if I was in a bad mood, she would make me happy pills. And to this day, I'm like, you got any happy pills? I mean, I guess today that's like Prozac. I don't know. I don't take pills. So it was like Prozac or whatever you take when you're not happy. But my mother used to make me these little happy pills. It was, it was playful, but I just remember her being playful and caring very greatly about education and culture. She would always take me to, cultural events. And I hated that, actually, the ballet and she liked the opera, and, all the things that I'm like trying to do today, but it just wasn't my jam. I was like totally, and as I grew older, and moved into my teenage years, well, then that, everything changed. But she really just wanted to offer me and my brother, as much knowledge and wisdom and education and culture as she could. And I was very lucky to have those opportunities. I didn't take all of them, but they were offered to me.
I think often many of us have that same regret that we weren't as wise or open to advice that our parents tried to lend us when we were of certain ages. So I have two questions. What were the happy pills? Were they candies or sugar? Or
No, it was nothing. It was made up. It was like, here, a little sugar and a little spice and everything nice. And here, have a little happy pill. But I remember that.
Oh, that's so fun. Because she knew you needed a little something to adjust that attitude, right?
Adjust whatever that attitude was.
And
exactly.
Did she ever try and not let you be a tomboy? Was that a thing for her? She just wanted you to be you.
So a really funny story as I started to evolve in my childhood. No, she was all about being a tomboy. My father was an excellent athlete, and I was just naturally athletic. So, you are what you are. And I think the best thing a mother can do for any child is to enhance and support gifts that they see in their children, and she was very much about that. I was the first girl on an all-boys baseball team. I was first base and pitcher. I was a home run hitter.
Oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
And the boys, they weren't so nice to me, but my mother always had my back, and it was like my birthday, and they were sticking me in the outfield. They were terrible, actually. The boys could not play for the life of them, and they made fun of me. And one day I didn't show up because they were obnoxious. I was 10 years old, and they all came to my house, and they were like, "Well, we need you."
Oh, hello.
And I was like, "Well, I need to pitch." And my mother was always supportive. I mean, I have a great story about something that happened in elementary school. My mother always had my back, that I will tell you, no matter what. I had this gym teacher. He was very hard on everybody. Teachers were a bit different back then. He looked like Mr. Clean. Remember Mr.
Yes,
Clean?
yes.
And I did something. I was very chatty, whatever. I was like a girl, I like to talk. So I got in trouble, and I happened to have a broken toe, and I can see myself sitting there, and he kicked me. Now, he would have been fired on the spot if it was today. This is 30, 40 years ago. And I don't know if it was a tap or whatever it was. My mother came to that school and went off on that teacher like you've never seen. I was like, you go, Mom. So, my mom, no matter what, always had my back. She was very, 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 very protective. She was very sheltered as a child herself, she and her sister. So that was also a challenge as I got older because, as you enter into your teenage years,
it was overbearing a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit for me.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm a free spirit. I want to do what I want to do. Come on.
Wow, amazing. But you knew pretty much out of the womb that you had a direction and a drive, it seems, that you wanted to do exactly what you wanted to do.
I think you're created. Well, it still goes today, and I'm much, in the middle, right? So I think we're all created a certain way, and you have genetics and DNA in you that you have to listen to who you are. And if you listen carefully, it'll guide you. And she allowed that for the most part.
And I don't know if you want to get into much of it because we have so much still to talk about your grandmothers and your business. But you mentioned briefly her background. She had one other sister. Where did your mom grow up?
So my mom grew up in New York, originally in Forest Hills, and until she was about 10. And then she, with her parents and she had an older sister, they moved to Miami. My grandfather was not well, and they told him he should live in a sunny state. So he had 17 women's ready-to-wear stores. He was in the garment center, and his stores were all over the West. And he shut the stores down, he sold the stores, and he moved to Miami and went into real estate. And my mother was the first class at Miami Beach High. So my mom was raised in Miami. She's a Miami girl.
You have some really endearing stories of your first memories, very, very young age, sitting at your grandmother's vanity and playing with her, as you say, her lotions and potions and fragrances. Was it Nanny or Grammy's vanity?
It was Grammy. So when I was little, we used to go to Shabbat dinners at my grandmother's, and because they were in the catering business, everything was always beautifully presented in their home and formal. And I remember so vividly her beautiful vanity that was like from the 1920s. It was very, today it's an antique. It was very glamorous. And I remember she had this very modern bathroom. It was black and gold. It was very, cool back then, almost very Art Deco, I guess. And I remember sitting there watching her. And when she would leave, or when she was cooking in the kitchen with my mother, I wasn't cooking. I was playing in the makeup. I was at that vanity. And I think she had like Clinique blush. And I would just sit there, and she had this beautiful tufted chair, this little swivel chair. And I would spin around, and I would find her pearls, and I would get dressed up, and I would put on makeup. And those are my most favorite childhood memories, is sitting at that vanity and just thinking about her and admiring the beauty of a woman getting ready for a night out, whether it was to go out with her husband or to be at an affair. There was a lot of formal affairs in my family because they were always not only throwing parties for business, but they celebrated a lot, I guess. I remember a lot of festivities. And actually that vanity sits in my bedroom today.
Oh, I was just going to ask you.
It does. The stories come, you forget as you age. And the only reason why I remember these stories is I'm writing a book and I did the podcast. And that's the whole point of storytelling is, to go back into your past to remember the positive things that inspired you or happened in your life or your world. And sometimes you remember the not so positive, but I like to focus on the positive. And my other grandmother had a vanity too, very similar in Florida that I used to sit at and play with her friend. I'm just remembering that right now. I used to sit there and enjoy and embrace all of her makeup. I just played with the makeup all day long. I just love that stuff. And when my mother was selling her home in the 5 towns, she asked me if I wanted the vanity, and I took it. And
Oh,
now
good
it's in my
for
room.
you. It's the part about a child being able to dream and being in that world, which is very different now because of all the
Mm-hmm.
technology and electronics and things. But that just happy within yourself and the imagination. You know, you can close your eyes and I can envision you sitting at the vanity. I mean, it's like a film. It just comes alive.
Yeah, that's
And
in the works too. Well,
yeah.
no, but you just hit on something so important, Jackie, about the dreaming. And people think sometimes, because I use that a lot in my conversation about the dream. Well, the dream is using your imagination. And that's what my mother allowed me to do, was be imaginative. And with technology, and I'm a part of all of it, just like you and everybody else, there is a lot lost in the dreaming. And the dreaming is what keeps us going. That's what, to be thinking about the future and to create and to imagine and to evolve as a human. We all have to dream because life is not so easy,
Right.
and it takes you away to another place. So
Right.
I was very blessed to have that fostered within me. And it also creates a lot of self-esteem, especially as a child and as a little girl.
And it makes you unique. You have your own beliefs and visions. And if it's something that was endearing to you, then you have that drive to pursue. It's kind of like you want to share that experience with other people because you know it was an amazing experience or a positive experience, right? And that's all that you know. So that's the direction and the kind of person that you're going to be if you're lucky enough to have these influences in your life and these experiences in your life.
Absolutely.
I know that the catering business and the business that your grandfather had, the retail, the clothing, it's such hard work and it takes such commitment. And I love that people can go forward in that direction with that line of work and not run away from something because it's hard. I think it tells a lot about somebody who doesn't want to give up. And listening to Finding Beautiful Strangers over and over again, you overcame obstacles. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, you have no idea, girlfriend.
Oh, I know, because some of my family
grind.
members are involved in advertising and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I see it's very hard.
It's very hard. I think that when you find something that you love, I forgot about this dream, by the way, the beauty and the fashion. I had an idea many years ago because I'm a dreamer, right? So I wanted to put fragrance in palette and call it Abby. And I brought it to my co-founder and I thought it would be fun. And she's like, nobody's buying Abby. I'm like, no, trust me, they will. It was just like a funny thing. This is a long time ago because I'm a dreamer, right? I invent things. And I think we need people who are dreamers. Not every dream becomes a reality or a business. And that's okay. Everything doesn't have to be about, you can have a passion, you can have a vision, you can have fun. I mean, where's the fun? It's not only about what is it going to be? How is it going to monetize? How is it, there's business that makes money and then there's dreams and there's aspirations and there's goals and, they're different. They're very different. But the hardcore knocks of building a business in any retail sector or media or beauty or fashion, it's making product, it's inventory. There is a whole world that's behind it that is very arduous and laborsome, and it is not easy. And I spent my whole life in media. So that was a different kind of career. When I moved into fashion, and when I moved into beauty and making product, that became a whole other world of detail. And I hats off to anybody who has an idea and actually brings it to market and continues because they believe that they're going to change the game. I like to believe that I come up with ideas that will be game changers. They just take a very, very, very long time to change the game. But that's what I do.
But, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day either. So,
Well, finding beautiful strangers to that point, and my mother, back to my mother, she loved Beautiful Stranger more than anything, my partner. In that project was my partner for 17 years. We were together the other day and people always stop me. You're bringing back Beautiful Stranger. And Finding Beautiful Strangers, that podcast, was something that I had to do. And I pivoted, taking the name of the brand Beautiful Stranger that I built. We were one of the first brands on the internet to interview celebrities and experts and make them shoppable. I did that with a whole team. And I could never let that brand, it it never died. It just evolved with me because it became a part of me. And it's so funny how my mother will say, oh, bring it back. And then her friends will say, and it's coming back in a different evolution, in a different way. But my mother, I must say, has always been the most supportive of all of my business ventures. And if she doesn't believe in something, she'll tell me. And if she doesn't think it's going to work, she'll tell me. So she's brutally honest.
Which is fantastic, because you don't want to surround yourself with people that just love you and say you're fantastic. So that's kudos to your mom.
Trust
and that's
me,
hard.
I got a lot of those.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm sure you have plenty. But as a mom, that's hard to balance. Hopefully you love your children more than anything and you always want to support them. But if you keep telling them they're perfect and you're fabulous and you're number one and they're all wrong, that's not good either. You have to have a little balance.
Absolutely.
But when I first saw the title, Finding Beautiful Strangers, I was like, what? Is that like this mystical thing, like happenstance? You stumble upon people, and it is the name of the business that you've transformed into these stories of your experience in life. But it's the core of something, and that is what can blossom. And that's why your mom is right, that you should perhaps consider down the line, and I'm sure you already are, consider keeping it, because Finding Beautiful Strangers, I love the title, and the stories are brilliant. I love when you're getting fired from the retail jobs. I had so much fun listening because it reminded me of me and jobs that you get and you think you're supposed to have it. You think it's the right one, and then you don't like it or you get let go, and that's okay. It's part of life. That's how we learn.
And that's exactly why I told those stories, because it is okay. And I as you know from the childhood, I was that aspiring business girl, woman, entrepreneur, and it's part of me. So to tell those stories is really about sharing my heart and soul and, failures and successes. And the title, Finding Beautiful Strangers, the brand when we created it was about cool people on the street with style. It still is. But Finding Beautiful Strangers did become more mystical and magical and have a deeper meaning and a layer of, a beautiful stranger can be anybody in your world, in your life. And that's sort of how I have hoped and evolved this podcast in a way that everybody has stories to tell and everybody has beautiful strangers in their world. It's just recognizing them and how to, I don't like the word use, but how to leverage their knowledge or their values or and look at the positive side. And, we're human. So we're all evolving all the time, and we should all be trying to be the best we can be. And if you have, a brilliant person in your world who you learn from, like a mentor or an advisor. I mean, I've been blessed with so many, but I sought them out. I built that over a lifetime. That's how I was as a kid. So, it's how you use it. And my hope is that podcast, that meaning of the title, will spark things in other people so they can use it for themselves like I did.
And don't disregard anyone that you happen to come across, whether it's on the street or in a restaurant, elevator, or supermarket. Don't disregard those happenstance meetings, because you never know how that person might instill your imagination or thinking or your reaction to the next person you meet. Things happen for a reason, I believe.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Oh, my goodness. Abby Wallach, you are fantastic. Maybe you'll do a master class if that interests you.
I love that idea. Maybe. Listen, with me, you never
Anything's
know what's
possible.
Anything is possible. You can have all the strategies in the world. You can plan it all out. But in the end, que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be.
And we'll be back next week with another episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother. Thank you, Abby, so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It was great.